Hi, everyone. This interview is with Squash Blossom boutique owner Lisa Bobb, and it's exactly why I love doing these interviews. It's so inspiring talking to somebody about their personal life and what sort of arc they have that took them to running a really successful business. And Lisa is the perfect example of that. Thanks for joining us in this conversation.
It's my pleasure.
So let's tell me a little bit about, the fact that you hold a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in mechanical engineering from MIT and UC Berkeley, respectively. And how do you land in Decatur to become a business retail entrepreneur? And then we can get on with your Squash Blossom Boutique. That doesn't roll out of my mouth very well, I'm sorry. Squash Blossom Boutique in Decatur.
That's cool. Well, to summarize a 40-year story into just a couple of minutes, yes, I started off my career thinking I wanted to study engineering. And I did pursue those degrees. I did achieve those milestones. And then, I quickly decided that wasn't me. I didn't really want to have a lifelong career as an engineer. So my first job out of grad school was as a project manager. And it's interesting because one of my early mentors, told me that, yes, you've got the math and science aptitude, but you really have a gift with people. And that's really going to take you further in life. This was an executive who just kind of took me under his wing. And so I worked as a project manager in an IT shop inside a software development company. And that began what turned out to be 20-year career in IT. As a project manager, I did a lot of program management, working for big companies like Cox Enterprises, Coca-Cola. And, that was my path. And as much as, I had success in that area, it wasn't really my passion. I can't really say that technology per se, for the sake of technology, was ever my passion. Throughout my life, I've always been really interested in curating, and we could say shopping, but really now I've learned it's more buying. Every time I got the opportunity to take a international trip with the company, I would always end up at the market of whatever place that I landed, just to discover the culture and see what people were making, see what people were kind of using to decorate themselves and their homes. And then I would always buy stuff and come back, and my husband would say, well, who'd you buy that for? And it's like, well, I don't know. I just loved it and I bought it. And so I really became a buyer before I had any business, literally any business doing that. And so what led me to Squash Blossom was actually in 2015. I got the corporate blessing of being laid off from my job. With a severance package. And I basically found myself at a decision point where I could go get another job. And I feel that I could have done that pretty easily, go work for somebody else again, and maybe take that money and invest it in the stock market and, probably do fine and keep trucking. But at that point, I decided, well, I had an opportunity to buy an existing business just through conversation and my shopping and relationship building around town. I became aware of this opportunity to buy Squash Blossom Boutique, which had been on the Decatur Square, as you know, since you've been living in Decatur forever, been on the square at that point already for 15 years. And it was a mainstay, and it was one of my favorite places to shop. And I always said, gosh, if I had a boutique, it would be just like this. So I made a decision to invest in myself and in my passion, as opposed to investing in someone else's business and going to work for someone else. So I made the leap in 2015 and bought the store. And I have not looked back since.
Well, that's a great story. I love how I mean, I know you've told this story before, but I just love how you're able to identify, oh, I really enjoy this particular experience, which was the buying side of things and identifying interesting things in markets to to let that become, an actual purpose and passion. I love that that you were able to make that happen.
Yeah, and linking it with the people too, because a lot of times when I interview new employees, prospective candidates anyway, I'll say, why do you want to work here? Why do you want to work at Squash Blossom? And 9 times out of 10, they say, I just love fashion. I just love clothes. I love the things, all of that. And it's like, well, you know what? This is actually a people business. The clothes and the fashion, that's one part of it. That's a big part of it. Obviously, that's the medium. But really the goal is to connect with people and do so, in a meaningful way that they're going to, you're going to build trust and all of that. And you have to really love doing that.
Yeah, and a lot of what probably people don't think about when they're going into retail, like you said, they're interested in the medium. And speaking of, you're now we're at this point in your story where you've become this entrepreneur, so to speak, in retail. I read that you've spoken at a lot of conferences over the years, and one of the sort of subjects that I was curious about was lean innovation methodology. And I know you've spoken on some other subjects, but can you just talk about what that is? And I just want to know how some of these things that you have been teaching and knowing and learning were useful for you as a smaller business owner.
That's a really great question. And another kind of lucky serendipitous, stop on my journey. I actually got into lean startup innovation in probably the most unlikely place inside a 125-year-old corporation, Coca-Cola. When I worked at Coke, I had the pleasure of being part of a team that was in charge of bringing an entrepreneurial spirit inside a big, slow, massive, mammoth company. Because the beauty of lean startup thinking, and it is kind of what it sounds like, it's doing things with less, doing more with less, right? And when you're inside a big company, every project takes 30 people, 1 year, and $1 million. You can't do anything for a shoestring budget. And so, that's a lot of waste. So there was this movement to bring that garage business startup thinking where you only have $500 into the company and say, how much can we do with this little bit of money and time and resource? So I was educating people on that, speaking about some of those things that can be done, like running small experiments or bringing things down to the minimal viable product, the MVP. It's like, how do you distill this big vision down to this one little thing that we can make and put out there and see if it works before we build upon it. So learning those real methods was really helpful for me when I actually became an entrepreneur, actually had a $500 budget instead of a $5 million budget. And the money was mine, right? It came out of my pocket. So it became really real fast. And I leaned on those kind of principles, which are pretty simplistic. It's kind of just taking off your corporate hat, where resources are endless, and really getting down to brass tacks, like what can I do quickly for the smallest amount of investment.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit, if you don't mind. We haven't gotten into your actual store, some detail on it. So just tell us about Squash Blossom. What is unique about it? What do you want people to know that's there for them in Decatur?
Oh my goodness. Squash Blossom is a treasure trove. So yes, it has, you walk in and it can be a bit of a sensory overload. I hope that it's tastefully done, but sometimes it's a lot. People always say, gosh, I want to walk through several times, and every single time I'm seeing something different. So it's another customer called it an adventure, walking through the store. So what I like to say is there truly is something for everyone in Squash Blossom, but everything still ties together. Our primary category is apparel, but we also have gifts. We have a bit of home good stuff. We have shoes and jewelry and accessories. And what's unique about it is I pull together a collection of items from different designers. Some of them are big brands that you might see in the mall. So it will save you a trip to the mall, but then you're gonna find a lot of things that you won't find anywhere else because they're made by either local designers or very small designers that are starting off that I've discovered through, my buying trips, or I do a lot of just research online, and I'm always trying to discover kind of things that you just don't see everywhere. And then that's the thing side of it. The experience side is, even though we're a boutique, I think we are a very welcoming environment, and we try to treat everybody like, we're going to be friends. So it's very disarming. There's nothing snooty about us. We welcome everyone. We love for you to get in the fitting room and throw stuff at you. We love styling people. So if you have an event that's coming up, or you want to make a change in your life, starting with your wardrobe, come see us, and we'd love to talk you through it and give you advice and give you ideas. And all of these things, can happen under our small roof.
Yeah, that's all about the experience. I love the description of, sometimes you just want to walk in somewhere, you may wander in, or you go in with purpose, and you want to make a change, and to be able to, have the environment that you offer that, says, yes, let's make some changes with you. This is a way to do it,
Right. And let's talk about it. I mean, yeah. I've become friends with a lot of my customers, and I've discovered through doing this that boutiques can be very intimate spaces, because, especially, I think, we have a lot of insecurities, every single one of us. And, when we go into the fitting room, we are quite literally bearing our bodies, right? And a little bit of our soul too, if we are brave enough to come out of the fitting room and take a twirl and say, what do you guys think of this, right? It's a very vulnerable position. And I'm always very honored that women invite me into that, and are willing to kind of talk about how they're feeling about their bodies or about themselves and how they present to the world. And it's just a very special, relationship that gets built.
Yeah, that sounds like it. And it sounds like a gift of a job as well for you, that you're doing what you're loving.
I love it.
So I want to go back to a bigger picture, maybe, so to speak. I just have, when I was reading about your experiences in the corporate world, can you share, some of what you were learning, and even if it's just one or two things, and how, as a business owner, you use these things to be successful? I thought of things like your experience in learning and studying about design and social media marketing, on intrapreneurism. I've never even heard of that. I had to look that up. Just if you can say maybe something to some new business owners, or some who are up and coming or considering opening a new business, like what of these sort of things that you've learned, that you brought in, really you found to be the most helpful in launching a small business?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say the first thing for me has been in identifying your audience, and identifying who is your customer, and doing focus groups essentially, and could be one-on-one. Best case scenario, it's one-on-one interviews with people that you think represent your target audience, and getting in their heads a little bit, not sending out a survey with, yes, no questions or 1 through 10 scales, but really getting into conversation. Yeah. Okay. So what I was going to say is social media is something you can spend your entire time on learning how to navigate Instagram. Oh my goodness. And it's forever changing. So there's always something to learn there. So I can't say I've cracked the nut on it. I think it's just something you have to keep chipping away, and you have to decide whether you want to, buy or build, right? Outsource it to a professional who you're just going to pay that money, because if you don't, you're going to pay in time, learning and executing on a good marketing strategy. But that's an area really I love tinkering in that, and learning about it, and it's fun and it's creative. So that's a big piece of it too.
Okay. And, you're also speaking to the language we hear a lot about with the economy, whether it was COVID, where things are now is, shifting and changing with whether it's social media or whatever you're using, marketing, et cetera. So can you tell us a little bit of how you've had to make some shifts since you've been owner of Squash Blossom, and also just, what would you say has helped keep you in business, being successful? What have you had to do differently? And, what's coming up for Squash Blossom too? Like, what are you thinking about, ahead going forward?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, the pandemic definitely made me a lot smarter about business. Trying to just tighten up a lot of my systems. So I would say the first thing is the way I'm buying and managing inventory, right? I just don't take anything for granted anymore. Before it was kind of like, buy it and they will come, so they may not come. So figuring out how to get a little bit more inventory management, tighter inventory management. So I'm just keeping in stock what I need at the time, and identifying those vendors that can supply me and resupply me as needed, kind of on demand. So that's one aspect of huge change. And that's more back end, right? I mean, customers may come in and say, oh, there's not as much here as I'm used to seeing, but actually I can see more, right? Less is more sometimes. So that's one piece of it. Another piece is, the online aspect. I mean, I just can't say enough about it. I mean, I think you have these online businesses who that's all they do, but having a brick and mortar certainly can suck up all your time, and the online can feel like an afterthought. But in this day and age, you really have to treat your online business like it's a store, and you have to staff it, and you have to train your employees, and you have to commit to it, and you have to be consistent, and you have to open every day. Just because it's online 24/7 doesn't mean anyone's watching the shop, right? And so you've got to make sure you go in there and touch it every day and do something to it, and because it makes a big difference. So my online store obviously saved my business, because for 3 months our doors were closed because we were non-essential, but we were doing curbside pickup and local delivery and shipping all over the world. Actually, we had some stuff shipped to Europe and Mexico, and so I really expanded my online footprint during COVID, and looking at that revenue stream that didn't exist before, it was like, well, man, if we can keep this going and open our doors, my goodness, this will be a different business.
This might be a good thing when everything normalizes a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
The benefits of being forced to change, I guess, right? Well, thank you so much, Lisa. It's really been a pleasure to learn from you here and just have you share your business wisdom with us. Tell us by the way, where can one find the brick and mortar of Squash Blossom?
Yes, so we are located in the heart of downtown Decatur, right on the square, across from the old courthouse, historic courthouse, and near the gazebo. And I also have a second location because as much as we love Decatur, we know that it's a bit tucked away from, the expressway. And a lot of people will say, gosh, I love Squash Blossom, but I never get to downtown Decatur. It's just not on my route. So I opened up a second store in the Grant Park neighborhood of Atlanta. I'm basically at the crosshairs of Highway 20 and 75, 85, Memorial Drive, across from the old historic Oakland Cemetery. And it's a smaller store. It's a little bit more targeted towards gift. But we've got great apparel that rotates through there as well. And so come by and visit us.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to get over there too. So, well, that's also for folks who want to check it out online. Go to squashblossomboutique.com, or like Lisa's telling us, go to downtown Decatur, go over to Grant Park, check it out. And we wish you nothing but continued and growing success, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.